Hi, I'm Brian Lord, Senior Vice President here at Premier Speakers Bureau, and I'm excited to have on the real former captain of the Enterprise, Ron Horton. Ron, thanks for so much for coming on.
Hey Brian, great to see you again. How are you?
I'm great, thanks. Now, the new Star Trek movie releases tonight as we're recording this. Now, what would you say the similarities are between, or are there any similarities between the USS Enterprise and the Starship Enterprise?
Well, it's funny you should ask that. I always used to tease my Air Force brethren. I always used to remind them that space is an ocean and that it was a starship, not a starplane. It's a battle cruiser, not a battle bomber. And it was Captain Kirk, not Colonel Kirk. So space is an ocean, and that's where the Navy and the ships belong, is in oceans.
Nice. My grandpa was a Navy doctor, so I'm sure he would appreciate that. So that's good to hear.
That's
Now,
awesome.
now specifically for event planners, you specialize in the flawless execution process. Maybe what are a few things from that flawless execution process that event planners could take and apply to their event planning?
That's a great question, Brian. And the important thing about the flawless execution model is it's very simple and scalable. But really, what event planners can take away is, the 6 steps of planning and having that tight, clear, measurable, achievable mission objective and doing that risk assessment where you're looking at your threats, your resources, your lessons learned. And then because the best laid plans never survive first contact with the enemy, you got to have contingency plans. And then you got to have a framework out there to be able to communicate that plan to get your team aligned, a 5-step briefing process. And then when you're doing execution, when you're dealing with all these people talking to you, how do you deal with task saturation, setting priorities, setting task shedding? And then, of course, the debrief, the framework to do that, where you take a lesson learned from that event and you apply it actionably to the next event. And this continuous improvement cycle continues using steps such as the ones I just mentioned.
Now, one quick question here: How do you maybe what's one quick way to deal with task saturation? Because I feel like that's probably one of the biggest ones they have is they've got 1,000 people yelling at them. Maybe what are a couple of things from task saturation that you could teach them?
Three things for task saturation I would tell them. You asked for two, I'll give you three. The first one is they got to know how to prioritize. They got to have their center focus that they have to keep track of or everything falls apart, but there's other priorities that they have to manage. So they need to sit down and have a list of priorities about one main thing and then 5 smaller things that they have to monitor. They also have to be able to know when to task shed and to delegate to the other people that are working on the team. And then the final thing that they want to do is know their people and to know how well their people can operate out there. And that's how that's how we deal with task saturation, be able to manage it and to mitigate it.
Well, Ron, thank you so much for this great advice for event planners that they can apply to their event planning. And of course, for you event planners watching this, he's normally former Admiral Horton, but you're allowed to call him Ron because you're that high level. You've reached that rank where you can call a former Admiral Ron. So, Ron, thank you so much for coming on and for doing this interview and helping out event planners in this way.
Great. Thank you very much.